Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today we're going to be finishing up the last chapter in our new book that we're reading together. That is Between Death and Life, written by Dolores Cannon. So this chapter we're talking about the death experience. And in particular, we're reading some interviews with some people that Dolores Cannon took into past life regression and took them back to a time when they died, when they left that recent life, the life before the one that they're in at the moment, since these people are alive. And they're talking about not just death, but also what they experienced right after. So we're picking up right after we finished reading an interview with what she refers to as subject. So we have S for subject and D for Dolores. In another case, I was speaking to a man who had just died in an avalanche. I asked him what it was like to die, and the subject said, "Have you ever dived into a deep pool to where it's dark and murky at the bottom? As you come back up towards the surface of the water, it gets lighter and lighter. Then, when you break through the surface of the water, there's sunlight all around. Death was like that." D. Do you think it was like that because of the way you died, with the rocks falling on you? And the subject says, no, it was like that because I was going from the physical plane to the spiritual plane. As I left my body, it was like coming up through the pool. Then when I reached the spiritual plane, it was like breaking the surface of the water and coming out into the sunlight. If you die in an accident, physically it is painful just before you lose consciousness of the physical plane because your body has been injured. But after you lose consciousness, it is very easy and natural. It's as natural as anything else in life. Making love, walking, running, swimming. It is just another part of life. There's no such thing as dying. You just go on to a different stage of your life. Dying is pleasant. If people are worried about it, tell them to go to a place in the river that has a deep pool. Tell them to dive down to the bottom of the pool. And then at the bottom, push up vigorously with their feet and come plunging up to the surface. Tell them it is like that. That's very interesting to read. When I was about 5 months pregnant with my daughter, and my daughter is 18 now. My ex-husband, my now ex-husband, his mom passed away in a car accident. It was very obviously very sudden and very tragic. And some of the things that her dad had worried about at that time was how scared his mother must have felt when she passed away. And reading things like this, because it's something I thought about also, really does give some comfort. If you've lost somebody suddenly in that way, maybe that can give you some comfort in knowing that even if they did feel pain, it wasn't something they felt for very long, and then they found this beautiful, pleasant feeling of light and love and letting go of their physical shell, that they didn't maybe feel sad or scared, because I think that's what can bother a lot of people most of the time when somebody dies suddenly like that, is how they were feeling leading up to that and right before passing away. D. I think many people are worried that death will be painful. Subject. Death is not painful unless that you have need of pain. Death is not painful unless that you have need of pain. I'm not sure if that's a typo or if I'm reading that with the wrong inflection, but that's what it says. For the most part, there is no pain unless it is wished for. It can be extremely painful if you wish it to be, or if you feel you have need of it in order to teach you a lesson. But you can separate yourself from that at all times. And this is available no matter how connected you are with what is going on. It is available to everyone. The separation of body and soul during this time of pain. D. But the actual death itself, the leaving of the body, is that painful? The subject says no. The transition is one of ease rather than that of duress. Pain comes from the body. The spirit feels no pain except remorse. That is really the only pain that a spirit can feel, a feeling that they could have done something more. This is painful, but physical pain no longer has meaning because that was left with the body. D. Is it possible to leave the body before actual death occurs and let the body suffer the pain? And the subject says yes. The person has that choice, whether or not they want to stay there and go through it, or if they want to leave and just watch. That is an option that is open to everyone. D. I personally think it would be easier, especially if it was going to be a traumatic death. S. This is strictly up to the individual. I wonder what prompts the decision. Maybe the lesson of needing to feel that pain and learn from it, it sounds like. And here we have a few paragraphs from Dolores Cannon. In my work, I have come across examples of this. In one regression, a young woman was being burned at the stake for her beliefs while the whole town watched. She was terrified, but was also very angry at the bigoted people who were responsible for this. As the flames leaped higher, she decided she would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her suffer. So she left the body and watched from a hovering position above the scene. There, much to her chagrin and aggravation, she saw her body screaming as it went through the agonies of burning to death. In this case, it was very obvious that the body and the spirit were two separate things. I think it would be very reassuring and comforting to people who have lost loved ones in a violent, horrible way to know that they probably did not even experience the most traumatic part of the death. It makes a great deal of sense to realize that the spirit would not want to remain in the body and experience all that pain. Therefore, the spirit removes itself and the body is merely reacting spontaneously. Almost like after when, say, an animal dies, like a snake. I remember one time when I was little, there was a snake in the driveway and my grandma took a shovel and chopped the snake's head off. And the body was just going and going and going for like a good 10 minutes. I remember that so vividly. I was probably about 5 or 6. I feel bad now. It was just a garden snake, but me and my cousin were so afraid, and she just came out and just chopped the head off and just walked back into the house. That was my Nana. All right. Much in the same way that we react when we cut or burn ourselves accidentally. We yell and we pull our hand away. This is not a conscious reaction, but an involuntary one. Thus, it would appear that during a horrible death, the body is merely reacting, while the real personality has vacated and is watching from the sidelines. Here we have another description of death from another subject. So the subject starts out talking. Imagine yourself naked, cold, and bleeding, walking through the dark woods full of briars and wild animals and strange noises. You know that behind every bush is a beast ready to pounce and tear you apart. And then suddenly you walk into a clearing where there is grass growing and birds singing, clouds in the sky, and a pleasant laughing brook that meanders on its way to its destination. Imagine the difference in these scenarios, and you can see my analogy portraying what you would call life and death. D. But there are many people on earth who are afraid of it. S. Many people who are in the forest are afraid. That is correct. Once they are out of the forest, there is no fear. The fear is in the forest. D. Then there is nothing to be afraid of in the transition. S. There are some transitions which are more desirable than others. I will not mince words on this. However, a door is merely a door. No matter how many times you open it, it simply will not change from being a door. And here we have another description. And the subject starts out talking again. People should not be afraid of dying. Death is no more to be feared than breathing. Dying is as natural and as painless as blinking your eyes. And that's almost the way it is. At one moment, you're in one plane of existence and you blink your eyes, so to speak, and you're in another plane of existence. That's about the physical sensation you have, and it's as painless as that. Any pain you feel in the process is from physical damage, but spiritually, there is no pain. Your memories are intact and you feel the same, as if your life is continuing. Sometimes it takes you a little bit to notice that you're no longer connected to your physical body, but usually that is noticed right away because your perceptions are broadened to where you can perceive the spiritual plane without the veil in the way. This is the clouded mirror, as some have likened it to. What happens is that at first there is a period of orientation. You are still very conscious of the physical plane, but you are exploring and absorbing the sensations of being aware of the spiritual plane until you get used to the fact that you're really on the spiritual plane and you are comfortable with it. D. Can you tell me, does your spirit include your soul when it leaves your body? And there is a difference between your spirit and your soul. A lot of people don't realize that. And here, the subject is saying that your spirit is your soul, but I'm going to disagree with that because I've read many, many books, and I believe there is a difference. I do believe there is a difference. I wish I could tell you exactly 100% what those differences are. But in one of the previous books that I read, I think it was Mary's Message to the World or Jesus Christ, the Letters, the Truth. He talks about the difference between the spirit and the soul. And so you can believe whatever you want to, but I personally believe that there is a difference. So this subject says that your spirit is your soul. The soul concept encompasses that energy which you would call your spirit, your identity, your reality. That is indeed your true self. You may call it your spirit or your soul, depending on which perception you would choose to integrate into your reality. D. We've heard a lot about what is called the silver cord. Is there any such thing? And the silver cord is likened to like your umbilical cord. It is this endless cord that comes from the belly button area and it attaches your soul to your body. So for people that do things like the lucid dreaming, they can leave their body. They stay connected to their body with that silver cord, and then they bring themselves back with that cord. It's like this unending, limitlessly long umbilical cord, a spiritual umbilical cord. So the subject says, this is, as you might perceive it, a lifeline to your body, which is very real in nature. In an energetic sense, this is the cord which maintains a lifeline with your energies to your body. It is indeed a real device. D. Then at the point of death, this cord is severed, and S says that is accurate. D. Some people are afraid to have out-of-the-body experiences for fear that they might become separated from their body prematurely. S. It is possible to do this. That's why they say be very careful when you're learning how to do lucid dreaming and things where you're actually leaving your body in a sense. So the subject says that's accurate. There should be no fear in experiencing astral travel. That's the other thing. For were it not meant to happen, it would never happen. So I don't know if she means or if the subject means that if it happens naturally, then you're okay. You won't have any risk of that versus if you're doing it on purpose and you're maybe not ready to do that or doing it correctly. I'm not sure. I think my cat's in here. I just felt something touch my leg. Sorry. Hope she's in here. And D says, but in many cases, it is not planned. It is spontaneous. And S just says that is accurate. It is spontaneous in quotations. And here we have just another little few paragraphs from Dolores Cannon. In my work, I have discovered that most people are not aware that everyone travels out of the body every night when they go to sleep. The body is the part that gets tired and must rest. The spirit or soul never requires sleep. It would be awfully boring for the real you, the spirit, to wait around for the body to wake up so it can continue its work. That's why they say some people wake up tired because their soul does so much work in the spirit realm. When they're sleeping, they're working with their angels. They're working on lots of other aspects that they don't remember all the time. So they can wake up feeling kind of tired, especially if you're going through like an active awakening cycle. that can happen where you've slept all night and you wake up feeling exhausted. And you may not remember because we don't all remember our dreams. Try as we might sometimes. All right. So while the body is sleeping, the real you is going off and having all kinds of adventures. It can travel all over the earth, spend time on the spirit side, or even go to other planes or dimensions. The person is normally not aware of this unless they remember dreams of flying or unusual places. You are always connected to your body by the silver cord, your lifeline, your umbilical. And when it is time to return to the body, you are more or less reeled in, and the spirit re enters the body. I have been told by my clients that they sometimes experience temporary paralysis just before awakening. This occurs when the person is awakened suddenly by a loud noise, etc., before the spirit is totally back in the body. The body/spirit connections have not been completed, and temporary paralysis is the result. It usually passes quickly, and nothing is to be feared. D. Is there any danger of someone staying out of the body? S. We perceive there is no danger, for were the individual not to return, it would be of his or her own choosing and not from some malevolent energy. It's not that a malevolent energy has come in behind and severed that cord. Nobody can do that for you. Just like nobody can take your soul, nobody can decide what happens to your soul, condemn it, or send it somewhere lovely. It is up to you. That is between you and your creator, however you refer to your creator. Okay. So D says they couldn't become lost, in other words, and not find their way back. And the subject says we do not perceive this as true. D. Then they are definitely connected with the body until the point of death, and then the cord is severed. It is like an umbilical, so to speak. S. That is entirely accurate. D. If death would occur during an out-of-body experience, what would we say the body died of? Would it be a heart attack? S. You are asking what the physical symptoms would be. Sudden infant syndrome is often ascribed to this. There are also those who, because of age, simply choose not to return, and so they are found in their sleep. So people that die in their sleep and it's not explainable, or from what it sounds like, sudden infant death syndrome. So D wants to clarify, is it a heart attack? And S says that is not the case because a heart attack is death induced by a real physical ailment and is not what we refer to here. They would die in their sleep and it would be called from natural causes. D. If an autopsy were performed, they wouldn't find any cause at all. And S says that is accurate. D. What about people who seem to die of spontaneous combustion? That is an unexplained mystery. S. This is due to an imbalance of what you would call chemicals within the system. It is because of the fact that human bodies do burn food, though through a very controlled and very slow process. Such a death is caused by the combustion of the body fluids. This is oftentimes due to hereditary factors, which cause an imbalance in the chemical makeup of the body. For example, too much phosphorus in the body system. And here another little paragraph from Dolores Cannon. When people are on the spirit side, they make a plan before they re-enter the karmic wheel called Earth. It is a plan of what they hope to accomplish during the next life. They also make contracts with other souls that are going to be important for them to interact with during the upcoming lifetime. Also, a part of this contract is their exit plan, so how they will leave. Everyone plans the way they will leave or exit this present lifetime. I have found that no one ever dies until it is their time to die. So that's very interesting because we hear a lot of people say they died before their time. They died an untimely death. They died before they were supposed to. I feel like in this book, talking about it right here, that is a very human way to look at it. But if you were to ask the spirit, they would tell you, no, I planned this. And even though some deaths, you can't imagine, why would somebody plan plan to die that way? Why would they do that to themselves? Why would they do that to their loved ones? It is all part of a bigger and grander plan and scheme, lessons and missions. There's so much around it and about it that we don't remember and we don't understand until we are back there on the other side. And then we come back and we don't remember all over again. We come here with amnesia almost. There are no such things as accidents. It was just the manner chosen for the soul to exit. When the soul has completed what it came to accomplish, it is time to move to the next phase of their existence. I have found that it is possible to delay the death for a short period of time. However, when it is the appointed time, the spirit chooses to leave. Of course, the conscious mind of the person has no memory of this part of the plan, because when we come into this life, the veil of forgetfulness comes down, and all memory of the spirit side is removed. They said one time, it would not be a test if you knew the answers. So we have to remain consciously oblivious to our soul plans. And how stress-inducing would that be if we knew when we were going to die and how? I think people would try desperately to avoid these things. And that could mess up your whole plan. That could mess up your whole mission. It could fail altogether, and you could do it repeatedly every life if you knew. D asks, what about people who seem to die in groups? There are many cases such as train accidents, massacres, earthquakes, where several people die at one time. Did they all choose to go at the same time, or did they have anything to say about it? And S, you are aware of the concept of karma on an individual basis. There is indeed also what is called group karma. There have been, through many eons of time, instances where souls have tended to group together to perform certain tasks, or to establish changes, or to experience life in a group, much as you tend to experience on an individual basis. These group deaths are nothing more than individual souls who would come together at some certain points in their transition, that is, in their learning experience of dying, and in so doing find themselves at a juncture at which it would be most appropriate for them to depart simultaneously. D, did they agree to do this before their entry into the life? And S says that is accurate, for it is in this group transition that they find support. There is a sharing of the experience in that they are not alone in this transition. In many cases, there have been multiple births and lives shared, so it is not uncommon to find multiple or shared deaths. So these complete and total strangers seemingly are not really complete and total strangers, maybe perhaps on a soul level. D, but there was so much suffering for the families and people all over the country when this happened. If they were going to their destiny, why can't we be happy about it? S, perhaps there is a short-sightedness in seeing these events. You are thinking only of the individuals who departed. This is not the case. There are many other elements involved. In cases like these, there was a coming together of the survivors, a sharing of the experience. In seeing that someone else is sharing the grief, it is much easier for an individual to experience this, knowing that there are others who are going through the same thing. Thus, this was a group experience on many levels. That's really true. And here we have just a last paragraph from Dolores Cannon, and then we will be done with chapter 1. Many subjects describe the experience after leaving the physical body as journeying toward a bright, dazzling light at the end of a tunnel or wherever. These descriptions have been duplicated in reports of NDEs or near-death experiences. One of my subjects said that this white light was an intense energy field that served as the barrier between our physical world and the spiritual realm. In NDEs, the person will approach the light, but are pulled back into their body before entering it. They have actually been in a near-death situation, but they did not complete the transition. They did not go far enough. When my subjects have relived the death experience, they pass through the white light, the barrier. At that point, the energy is so intense that it severs the silver cord. the umbilical that attaches the spirit to the physical body. When this occurs, the spirit cannot cross back through the barrier and enter their body again. The two have been forever separated. Without this connection to its life force, the solar spirit, the body quickly begins to deteriorate. Okay. So we are now done with chapter 1. And in the next video, and in our next few videos, we will read chapter 2, the greeters, which I'm assuming are the souls that greet you when you do leave this life and go into the interlife. And this chapter, let me just go to the front here, so we can get an idea, because I did have to break this chapter up into 3, is 10 pages long, it looks like. So I say we can do that in one video, but it may be broken up into 2, just depending. I'm trying to keep these videos around the 20-minute mark, just, because it's a lot of information. So yeah, we'll see what we can do, but I'm assuming 2 videos should suffice for chapter 2. And we have 16 chapters to read. So we'll stop there. Thank you all so very much for joining me. I'm so happy to be back. I love you all very much. And as always, until I see you again, take care of yourself and take care of those around you. And I will see you soon for chapter 2. Bye-bye.